Good morning, beloveds. Today we're going to reflect on a phrase you may have heard before. We need each other. And what does that mean, we need each other? Well, not as a fallback, not as a last resort, not just when life gets overwhelming or when we have no other choice. What if we saw need as a deep, abiding truth of what it means to be human? We are not separate strands floating through life, untouched by one another. We are the web. I have been blessed to experience this lesson many times throughout my life. Through justice work, through parenting, through ministry, through the fierce beauty of queer and trans community. Through every moment when I thought I had to hold everything alone, at my breaking point, and someone moves in to support me. Through every time I have witnessed people showing up for one another, not out of obligation, but of love. And yet, the world around us, the dominant social narrative, tells a different story. Capitalism, white supremacy culture, patriarchy, these systems thrive on disconnection. They tell us that strength can only be earned alone, that independence is the highest value, that needing others is weakness. It's in the messages that tell us to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, grin and bear it, fake it till you make it. You have to put yourself out there. If you just focus and work hard, we can feel it in the constant pressure to prove our worth through how much we can produce, how much we can handle on our own, how much we can take on. We see it when people are left behind, when communities are gutted, when care is treated as an afterthought rather than the foundation of our lives. We are so blessed that that is not the story we tell here. When we gather as Unitarian Universalists, our faith reminds us none of us exist in isolation. We value interdependence, not just as a biological fact, not just as a nice sentiment, but as a spiritual call. We ask each other to live as if we belong to one another, because we do. If we are the web, what happens when a strand frays? What happens when a part of the web is neglected, forgotten, or intentionally cut loose? The web weakens, the whole web. The work of interdependence isn't just about connection. It requires responsibility, accountability, relationship. It's about recognizing that our well-being is bound up together. My covenant with you, with Unitarian Universalism, binds me to you in love, in justice, and in belonging. When harm happens, when injustice thrives, it affects every one of us. When someone in our community is struggling, all of us are struggling. There is a sacred truth that we have great strength in our interdependence. And when we embrace that truth, when we live like we believe it, we don't just survive, we thrive. I recently encountered the powerful work of Dr. Christina Cleveland through her book, God is a Black Woman. She caused me to pause and reflect about the ways a patriarchal society rooted in Christianity has taught me to suppress having needs. Think about that for a moment. Many of us have encountered that God, the one who is distant, judgmental, male, and white, the God who rewards self-sufficiency and punishes dependency, who expects us to push through, handle it ourselves, not complain, not ask for too much. Well, gee, that sounds a lot like the message the world gave us. We cannot deny that much of the patriarchy in our society is reinforced by religious institutions, that our sense of authority is mirrored off of many toxic traits of masculinity. This is one of the ways Christian nationalism has been able to root so deeply in our communities. Capitalism tells us our worth is in what we produce. White supremacy and patriarchy tell us power belongs to those who never show weakness. The message over and over again is that needing something, needing others, needing anything makes us a burden. How often have you caught yourself when you actually need help saying, I don't want to bother anyone? Or when you're struggling, I should be able to handle this on my own. We internalize these messages. They drag at us like a weight. Dr. Cleveland taught me that a matriarchy is not the opposite of a patriarchy. It's not an iron-fisted rule by the feminine in place of the masculine. No, it's a mutual relationship of need, one that delights in our needs, doesn't ask us to shrink our needs down or hide them, where we are expected, encouraged, and celebrated for showing up whole with our hunger, our longing, our vulnerability intact. Imagine what it would feel like to be met with that kind of love, where having needs is not a flaw, where we're honored for having needs as a sacred connection point. And what if needs weren't something to fix? What if they were something to cherish? What if the things we've been taught to hide are actually the things that weave us together? When we suppress our needs, do we actually become stronger? Or do we just become more isolated? Isn't isolation exactly what these oppressive systems want? Disconnected people are easier to control. Beloveds, we cannot do this alone. We were never meant to. Suppressing needs weakens the whole web. When one strand of the web suffers in silence, the whole thing is strained. When we don't allow space to receive, we make it harder for others to give. We deny them that gift to us. When we pretend we're fine, we unintentionally tell others that they should pretend to, and we judge them if they don't. What if instead of hiding our needs, we named them? Instead of seeing dependence as weakness, we saw it as the foundation of community. What if we trusted that our needs were not burdens, but invitations? Invitations to be seen, to be held, to build something stronger together. Invitations to be in covenant together. Interdependence isn't always neat or easy. It's one thing to say we're all connected, to nod along when we hear the word community. It's another thing entirely to live like we believe it. Because real interdependence, the kind that transforms us, isn't just a warm, fuzzy concept. It's a practice, a discipline, a choice we make again and again. And like any spiritual practice, it stretches us. It calls us beyond what's comfortable. It asks us to show up for each other when it's convenient, to let ourselves be held when we'd rather power through alone, to release control and trust in others, even when we're afraid we can't. That's hard, especially when so many of us have been taught that strong means independent, that successful means self-sufficient. What if we redefine strength? What if strength wasn't about how much we can carry alone, but about how much need we are willing to share? What if success wasn't about proving we don't need anyone, but about knowing we belong to each other? I think that kind of interdependence requires practice, which means it's messy, just like any other practice of learning. It's going to mean things like asking for help before we hit crisis mode, before we're drowning, before we're exhausted beyond repair. Showing up for others even when we feel awkward or unsure, when we don't have the perfect words, when we're not sure what to say, but we know presence matters. Trusting that others will catch us when we stumble, and when they don't, try again instead of retreating into self-reliance. Letting go of control, allowing space for collaboration, for shared leadership, for community care, even when we think we can do it faster and better on our own. It's not about losing yourself. It's not about codependence. It's about living in right relationship. It's about recognizing that your well-being is tied to mine and mine to yours. And that, my friends, is sacred, messy, beautiful work, countercultural work, good trouble. You see, capitalism, white supremacy, and patriarchy thrive when we are disconnected, when we're taught to compete instead of collaborate, when we believe the lie that we have to do it all ourselves. Interdependence is resistance. How we build a world where no one is disposable. How we hold each other through grief and struggle and joy. Interdependence is how we heal. What would it feel like to treat interdependence as a daily, holy practice? Not just a thing we talk about on Sundays, not just an idea we like in theory, but a practice, a discipline, a commitment. What would shift if you lived as if your need for others and their need for you was sacred truth? Because, beloveds, we were never meant to do this alone, and we need to practice. So some invitations for ways we can live into interdependence and not just theorize about it. Normalize asking for help. Start small. Ask a friend to grab you something from the store. Let someone know you need a listening heart. And when you do these things, notice what comes up for you. Discomfort, maybe shame. Those are the toxic stories we've been taught. Stories we can unlearn. Check on your community's web. Who haven't you heard from in a while? Who might be struggling? Quietly. This isn't about fixing anyone. It's about showing up and saying, I'm here, you matter. Maybe it's reaching out to the person who always seems like they've got it together and asking how they're really doing. Not just how are you, but no, really, how's your heart today? Let yourself be part of the web, not the whole thing. You don't have to hold every strand. You don't have to do everything. You have to move into trust with others. Trust that others will show up too. Dr. Cleveland talks about letting go of control as a sacred act. Engage in collective liberation work. Interdependence isn't just about personal relationships. It's about our solidarity. Fighting for trans rights is also racial justice, disability justice, reproductive justice, climate justice, because none of us is free until all of us are free. Try an interdependence inventory. Take some time this week to reflect on who is it that you rely on? Who relies on you? Are there any gaps? Who might need more support? Where could you ask for help? Interrupt individualism when you hear it. When someone says, I don't want to be a burden, remind them we are meant to lean on each other. Mutual care is how we thrive, not just survive. We live in a time when the myth of individualism is cracking. Climate crisis, systemic violence, social isolation, fascism. It's clearer than ever. We can't do this life alone. There is such beauty, such power in what happens when we lean in together, when we choose connection over separation, when we trust that our needs and our gifts are what hold us together, when we say we were never meant to do this alone. So let's stop pretending we're okay. Let's weave this web with intention, with tenderness, with courage, with vulnerability. Let's lean in, hold on, and remember we are stronger together, not in spite of our needs and differences, but because of them. We were always meant to be. Amen, Ashe, and blessed be.